What if the graveyard of "I'll start tomorrow" is not filled with failed dreams, but with misunderstood ones? What if the vast chasm between the person who merely dreams and the one who achieves is not bridged by raw talent, luck, or fleeting motivation, but by a forgotten power accessible to all? This power is the ability to always finish what you start. This power is not a gift, but a science, and the ancient Stoics were its undisputed masters. 5 principles to always finish what you start. Stoicism, compiled and published by Stoic Power. Lesson 1. Mental clarity. Before all action, imagine a master architect standing before a raw, shapeless block of marble, a commission for a grand cathedral before him. He does not instruct his builders to simply start chipping away in the general direction of a church. To do so would be to invite chaos, wasted effort, and certain failure. Instead, he spends countless hours, perhaps weeks or months, in quiet contemplation, meticulously drafting a detailed blueprint. He defines every arch, every pillar, every window, and every dimension with absolute mathematical clarity. He understands the load-bearing requirements, the flow of light, the spiritual purpose of the space. He knows that without this initial perfect clarity, the entire magnificent structure will either never be completed, or worse, will collapse under its own weight from a flawed foundation. This blueprint, this act of profound premeditation, is the first and most crucial principle of finishing what you start. This personal development video is inspired by Stoic philosophy, focusing on training the mind, mastering emotions, and overcoming fear. Yet for so many of us, our most important projects are started in a state of inner conflict, armed with a surge of fleeting motivation but no clear blueprint. We have a vague, romantic notion of the cathedral we want to build, the successful business, the transformed physique, the completed novel. But we rush into laying stones without a plan, only to find ourselves lost, overwhelmed, and deeply discouraged weeks later, standing in the rubble of another abandoned project. The problem with this lack of initial clarity is that it is the primary poison that kills ambition in its infancy. A goal without a clear plan is merely a wish, a fragile dream that dissolves at the first touch of reality's friction. When the path is foggy and undefined, our minds perceive the journey not as an exciting adventure, but as a looming, ambiguous threat. This triggers the primitive parts of our brain responsible for procrastination and avoidance. Furthermore, this lack of clarity creates an immense opportunity cost. We don't just waste time by not starting. We often waste even more precious time by starting the wrong projects, pouring our energy into ill-conceived ventures that were never truly aligned with our deepest values. We dutifully build a wall one brick at a time, only to realize months later that we have built it in the wrong location entirely. From a Stoic perspective, this is a moral failing, a failure to use our highest faculty, reason, to direct our lives with purpose. The transformative solution is the Stoic principle of achieving profound mental clarity before taking any significant action. It is the non-negotiable discipline of creating the blueprint first, of forcing yourself to answer the hard questions of what am I building? And, more importantly, why? Before you ever lift a single tool. Through inner stillness and steadfast thinking, this video guides viewers to become resilient, draw strength from within, and live with unshakable confidence. The core idea is drawn from the very heart of Stoic wisdom, which elevates reason, our hegemonicon or ruling faculty, as our supreme guide. Action without clear intention is chaos. The Stoics believed that a well-lived life is an ordered and purposeful one, where our actions are aligned with our ultimate purpose, or telos. The Emperor Marcus Aurelius wrote to himself, "You must build up your life action by action and be content if each one achieves its goal as far as possible." But to know if an action achieves its goal, you must first define that goal with absolute precision. Clarity isn't just about a to-do list. It's about aligning every small action with the grand cathedral of the person you wish to become. It acts as a filter for all of life's impressions, allowing you to effortlessly discern what is important and what is merely a distraction. To build this habit of clarity, you must become the architect of your own ambitions. The first actionable step is to write down your objective in a single, clear, and measurable sentence. What does done look like in unmistakable terms? The second, deeper step is to define your why. Use the 5 whys technique. Ask, why do I want this? And then to that answer, ask why again. Repeat 5 times to drill down past the surface level desires to the deep emotional core of your motivation. This core why is the rocket fuel that will get you through the inevitable moments of difficulty. The third step is to outline the 3 to 5 major milestones or pillars required to complete the project. This is the basic, load-bearing structure of your blueprint. A fourth, more advanced step is to conduct a pre-mortem. Imagine it is 6 months in the future and your project has completely failed. Now, write the story of why it failed. This exercise forces you to anticipate potential obstacles with startling clarity, allowing you to reinforce your plan before you even begin. The benefits of applying these actions are immediate and profound. The fog of overwhelm lifts, replaced by a sense of calm, focused control. Your motivation will become deeper and more resilient because it is now attached to a compelling, well-defined reason. You will have a defined path to follow, making that first step and every subsequent step feel logical, intentional, and achievable. You stop being a frantic, lost builder and become the master architect of your own life. Your call to action is to take one goal you are currently wrestling with. Before you do anything else on it, take just 5 minutes to write a 1-sentence definition of done and a 1-sentence core why. Know your destination and your reason before you take a single step on the journey. This mental clarity gives you the map, the perfect blueprint for your cathedral. But even with the most flawless map, the journey of 1,000 miles can feel too daunting to begin. The next principle teaches us the secret to taking that crucial first step, the Stoic trick to overcoming the immense inertia of starting. If you are ready to build with clarity, please support our channel by liking this video and subscribing to Stoic Power. Lesson 2. Shrink the task to start. Think of starting a great bonfire on a cold, dark night. You do not hold a single, tiny match to a massive, dense, damp log and expect it to ignite. That would be a foolish and futile effort, leading only to frustration and a burnt-out match. Instead, a wise fire starter begins with the smallest, most flammable material available: a piece of dry tinder, a crumpled ball of paper, a few pine needles. He lights that first, shelters it, and uses its small, reliable flame to ignite progressively larger pieces of kindling. Only when he has built a hot, stable base of coals does he introduce the great log, which the fire is now powerful enough to consume. This is the second and perhaps most practical principle of finishing what you start. Yet so many of us are trapped in an inner conflict where we stand before the great log of our ambition with only a single match. We stare at the enormous project, the book that needs to be written, the business that needs to be built, the body that needs to be transformed, and we feel so completely overwhelmed by its sheer scale that we fail to even strike the match. We are paralyzed by the gap between our starting point and our destination. This feeling of being overwhelmed is the primary psychological trigger for procrastination. Modern neuroscience confirms this ancient wisdom. Our brains, particularly the amygdala, perceive a large, ambiguous task as a threat. This triggers a fight, flight, or, most commonly in the case of procrastination, a freeze response. The psychological pain of this is immense. It is not a state of rest. It is an active state of stress where you are neither working productively nor resting peacefully. You are trapped in a mental purgatory, burning energy by constantly worrying about the task you are not doing. This chronic inaction erodes self-esteem and creates a vicious cycle of feeling incapable, which only makes starting even harder the next time. The transformative solution is the profoundly simple yet powerful Stoic principle of shrinking the task until it is so small, so easy, so non-threatening that it would be more effort to avoid it than to simply do it. It is the art of finding the tinder, of focusing only on the part you can ignite right now. The core idea is that momentum is infinitely more powerful than fleeting motivation. The Stoics understood that we live only in the present moment, and our power exists only in the present action. We don't write a book. We type one word now. We don't get in shape. We do one push-up now. The secret is to forget about the monumental log of the finished project and focus all of your energy and intention on the ridiculously small act of lighting the tinder. That first tiny action creates a flicker of momentum. This leverages a psychological principle known as the Zeigarnik effect, which states that our brains remain fixated on incomplete tasks. By simply starting, you open a mental loop that your brain will naturally want to close, making the next step feel more automatic. To master this habit of starting small, you must defy your instinct to think big. The first actionable step is to identify the absolute smallest physical action that represents the beginning of your task. Not write the first chapter, but open a new document and type the title. Not go to the gym for an hour, but put on your workout clothes. The second step is to commit to an incredibly short period of work, using the famous 2-minute rule. Set a timer for just 2 or 5 minutes and give yourself complete and total permission to stop when the timer goes off. The goal is not the output. The goal is to overcome the friction of starting. The third step is to change your goal from finishing to starting. Your only measure of success for the day is whether or not you lit the tinder. This builds an identity-based habit. You are not trying to finish the project. You are trying to become the person who starts. You can strengthen this by using habit stacking. Link your new tiny habit to an existing one. For example, after I pour my morning coffee, existing habit, I will open my laptop and write one sentence, new tiny habit. By practicing this, you will dismantle the psychological wall of procrastination brick by brick. You will trick your brain into action by making the first step feel safe and effortless. And the magic of this approach, as you will discover, is that once you start, you often don't want to stop. That 2 minutes of typing often turns into 30. Putting on your workout clothes makes going to the gym the next logical step. You will build momentum effortlessly and cultivate the powerful identity of someone who takes action. Your motivational practice is to identify one important task you have been avoiding. Your only goal for today is to work on it for just 2 minutes. Set a timer. When it goes off, you are free to stop. Just light the spark. You now have the clarity to see the path and the momentum to start the journey. You have a roaring fire started, but every great journey has its messy middle. A point where the initial excitement fades and the reality of the hard work sets in. This is where the fire risks burning out. This is where you must build fortitude. We will now explore the principle of building strength against inevitable discomfort. We invite you to share the task you will work on for 2 minutes in the comments below. Lesson 3. Build fortitude against discomfort. Imagine a long-distance marathon runner pushing through the desolate middle miles of a race. The initial thrill of the starting line and the cheering crowds has long since faded. The joyous sight of the finish line is still miles away, a distant abstraction beyond the horizon. All that exists is the present moment. The burning in his lungs, the ache in his legs, the monotonous rhythm of his own feet on the pavement, and the screaming, seductive voice in his head telling him to stop, to walk, to quit. This is the wall. It is a moment of pure, unadulterated discomfort, a point where the will is tested against the body's overwhelming desire for relief. This is the third and most crucial principle of finishing what you start. We all face this wall in any meaningful endeavor. We are in an inner conflict between our commitment to our goal and our powerful, primitive urge to seek comfort and escape pain. The work becomes tedious, the progress feels agonizingly slow, the initial passion wanes, and the temptation to abandon the project for something easier, something more novel and exciting, becomes almost overwhelming. This is the great filter that separates the amateur from the master, the starter from the finisher. The problem is that our modern world is an engine of comfort. We are conditioned by a culture of instant gratification, where nearly every discomfort can be immediately soothed by a distraction, a delivery, or a digital escape. This constant search for comfort has actively weakened our fortitude muscle, leaving us mentally soft and ill-equipped to handle the sustained, voluntary discomfort required to achieve anything great. The messy middle of a project feels so acutely painful because we are out of practice at feeling any pain at all. We have a low tolerance for the very friction that is necessary for growth. The transformative solution is the Stoic principle of deliberately building your fortitude against discomfort. It is the habit of seeing discomfort not as a red light signaling you to stop, but as the feeling of resistance in a gym for the soul, a signal that you are growing stronger. It is about learning to lean into the wall, to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. The core idea is based on the Stoic practice of ascesis, or voluntary hardship, a concept championed by philosophers like Seneca and Epictetus. They believed that fortitude is a muscle that, like any other, can only be strengthened through resistance. Seneca wrote letters advising his friends to periodically live as if they were poor, eating simple food, wearing rough clothes, sleeping on a hard pallet. He did this not out of a love for suffering, but to rob misfortune of its power by practicing it voluntarily. This is adversity inoculation. By intentionally and regularly choosing small, voluntary discomforts in your daily life, you are training your mind to tolerate the involuntary discomfort that comes with any great project. You are lifting mental weights so you will be strong when life presents you with a heavy load. To build this unbreakable fortitude, you must become a voluntary warrior. The first actionable step is to reframe the feeling of discomfort itself. When it arises during your work, do not label it pain, boredom, or frustration. Label it training. Say to yourself, this is the feeling of my willpower getting stronger. This is the friction that creates growth. The second step is to practice voluntary hardship in other unrelated areas of your life. Take cold showers, exercise when you don't feel like it, practice intermittent fasting. These small acts of defiance against your comfort-seeking brain build immense mental toughness that will carry over into your work. The third step is the 5 more rule. When your mind screams at you to quit, make a simple contract with yourself. I will just do 5 more minutes, or I will write 5 more sentences. This not only gets you a little further, but also teaches you that you always have more in the tank than your mind wants you to believe, directly building the psychological trait of grit. By embracing discomfort as training, you will forge a will of iron. You will develop the rare and valuable ability to push through the difficult middle phase of a project where almost everyone else quits. This ability is a true superpower in a world of distraction and ease. It will make you a reliable, effective individual who can be counted on to see things through, no matter how difficult they become. Your call to action is to choose your training ground. This week, deliberately do one thing that you typically avoid simply because it's slightly uncomfortable or boring. Lean into that feeling. Hold it for a moment. Then congratulate yourself for completing a successful workout for your mind. This fortitude allows you to endure the hard parts. But endurance alone is not enough. Sporadic endurance does not finish a marathon. To reach the finish line, you must combine this toughness with a relentless, day-in, day-out consistency. The next principle is the engine that drives you all the way to completion. If you're ready to build your fortitude, please like this video and subscribe to Stoic Power. Lesson 4. Finish with ruthless consistency. Observe the slow, patient dripping of water upon a massive granite stone. A single drop makes no visible impact. 100 drops leave no trace. But the relentless, steady, day after day dripping over months and years will eventually wear a hole straight through the solid rock. The awesome power is not in the force of any single drop, but in its ruthless, unbreakable consistency. This is the fourth principle of finishing what you start. It is the engine of all great achievements. Yet, so many of us live with an inner conflict between our ambition and our methods. We work like a sprinter in a marathon, running in short, intense, and impressive bursts of motivation, but then collapsing for long periods of rest and inactivity, losing all the momentum we have built. This binge and purge cycle of work is a hallmark of the amateur. We subject ourselves to the immense stress of heroic, last-minute efforts, the binge, followed by periods of burnout and inactivity, the purge, a form of self-inflicted chaos. This start-stop cycle is a deeply inefficient and frustrating problem. It is based on the myth of motivation, the mistaken belief that we must feel inspired or energized to do our work. Motivation is a fickle and unreliable emotion. The man who waits for motivation to strike is a passive man, waiting for the wind to fill his sails. The consistent man is an active man. He learns to row whether the wind is blowing or not. This inconsistency also destroys the most important foundation for success: self-trust. Every time you commit to a project and then abandon it, every time you break a promise to yourself, you are teaching yourself that your own word is not to be trusted. This is a devastating psychological blow that makes future commitments even harder to keep. The transformative solution is to embrace the mindset of the water drop. It is the Stoic principle of committing to a system of daily consistent action, no matter how small. It is the understanding that showing up every single day is infinitely more important than showing off on any single day. The core idea is that great things are not built by inspiration, but by habit and routine. The Stoics valued the daily routine of the philosopher, the daily reading, writing, and self-examination, above all else. They were craftsmen of the soul, and they knew that mastery comes from showing up at the workshop every day, regardless of mood or inspiration. The goal is to be the craftsman, not the temperamental artist. This commitment to consistency is the engine that creates a smooth flow of life, or your Hoya, a key Stoic ideal. This isn't a life of dramatic peaks and valleys, but a steady, rational progression toward virtue. To build this habit of ruthless consistency, you must focus on the system, not the goal itself. The first actionable step is the famous "don't break the chain" method. Get a physical calendar and mark a large, satisfying X over every day that you complete your small, designated task. Your only goal becomes not breaking the chain of X's. The visual power of this unbroken chain creates a positive feedback loop, making the pain of breaking the chain feel greater than the pain of doing the work. The second step is to lower the barrier on hard days. Consistency does not mean intensity. On days when you have no energy or motivation, your only requirement is to do the absolute minimum to keep the chain alive. Write just one sentence. Do just one push-up. The point is to maintain the habit and the identity of someone who shows up every day. The third step is the rule of immediate recovery. You are human. You will eventually break the chain. The rule is you can miss one day, but you must never miss 2 days in a row. Get back on track immediately, without guilt or self-recrimination. For added power, find an accountability partner and share your chain with them, adding a layer of social commitment. The benefits of this approach are the creation of a force of nature in your life, unstoppable momentum. Progress becomes automatic, a natural byproduct of your daily system. You will shed the identity of a starter and forge the powerful identity of a finisher, which will profoundly increase your self-respect and confidence. You will achieve your great goals almost without noticing the effort, simply by focusing on the small, daily act of winning the day. Your call to action is to pick your one key task, the one that matters most to your long-term goals. For the next 7 days, your only goal is to not break the chain. Show up every day, even if it's just for 1 minute. Start building your chain of consistency. You now have a complete system for starting, enduring, and consistently working on any task. You have the tools to get to the finish line, but there is one final principle that ties it all together and ensures that you not only finish, but that you grow with every cycle. This is the principle of reflection. Please share your one key task in the comments to make your commitment public and inspire others. Lesson 5. Reflect, refocus, repeat, relentlessly. Imagine a master farmer at the end of a long and successful harvest season. He does not simply celebrate his bounty and then abandon his fields to lie fallow until the next spring. His most important work, in some ways, is just beginning. He walks the harvested land, analyzing the soil for its nutrients. He inspects his tools, sharpening the blades that have grown dull and mending the handles that have cracked. He reflects deeply on the past season. What planting techniques worked best? Which crops thrived? What lessons the weather taught him? He does all of this so that the next harvest will be even more efficient, more resilient, and more bountiful. This is the final principle of the master finisher. It is the relentless cycle of improvement. So many of us, however, exist in an inner conflict after completing a major task. We either collapse in exhaustion and fail to start anything new for a long time, squandering our momentum, or we immediately jump into the next project with the same frantic energy, having learned nothing from the previous experience. We are trapped in the curse of the amateur. The amateur finishes and celebrates, or complains. The professional finishes and analyzes. The problem with this approach is that it makes our efforts a series of disconnected, linear events, rather than a compounding, upward spiral of mastery. Without a system for reflection, we are doomed to repeat our mistakes, encounter the same frustrations, and relearn the same lessons over and over again. Without a system for refocusing, our efforts become a series of one-off projects, not a lifelong journey of craftsmanship. We finish, but we do not grow. The transformative solution is the Stoic principle of the reflective loop. It is the habit of treating the end of one task as the sacred preparation for the next. It is the commitment to a continuous upward spiral of action, reflection, and improved repetition. The core idea is embodied in the Stoic practice of the evening meditation or philosophical journal, and it is the very essence of philosophy as a practical art. Marcus Aurelius, Meditations is not a book of answers. It is a workbook of personal reflection. The Socratic maxim, "The unexamined life is not worth living," applies not just to our life as a whole, but to the life cycle of every single project we undertake. The goal is not just to finish, but to finish, learn, and begin again, stronger and wiser. Life, for the Stoic, is not a destination. It is a relentless process of improvement toward the best version of oneself. The reflective loop is philosophy in action. To install this powerful loop into your life, you must make reflection a non-negotiable step in your process. The first actionable step is to schedule an after-action review immediately after completing any significant task. The second step is to use a structured set of questions during this review. 1. What was my original plan? 2. What actually happened? 3. Why was there a difference between the plan and the reality? 4. What will I do the same and what will I do differently next time? Write down the answers. A more advanced practice is to keep a failure journal, dedicated only to analyzing mistakes and extracting data, turning shame into a valuable resource. The third step is to use these insights to consciously and deliberately adjust your blueprint for the next task. Then, with this new wisdom, you begin the cycle again, repeating it relentlessly. By embracing the reflective loop, you create a system of compounding personal growth. Each project you complete does not just produce an external result, it produces a better, wiser, more effective version of you. You will become a true master of your craft, not just a finisher of tasks, as your skill, wisdom, and efficiency will grow exponentially over time. This is the path from simple completion to genuine, lifelong mastery. Your final call to action is to formalize this process. The very next time you finish a project or even a significant weekly task, immediately schedule a 15-minute reflection session in your calendar for the following day. Treat it as the most important meeting of your week, a meeting with your future, wiser self. This final principle closes the loop, turning you from someone who sometimes finishes things into someone whose very nature is to finish, learn, and grow relentlessly for the rest of your life. This is the true path to dominating your goals and ultimately your life. To always finish what you start is not a matter of luck or fleeting motivation, but of timeless principle. By building a life on the foundation of clarity, small starts, fortitude, consistency, and relentless reflection, you become an unstoppable force, a master of your own will and creator of your own destiny. Thank you for taking the time to learn these 5 powerful principles. If this video has provided you with value, please like, comment with the principle you will focus on first, and subscribe to the Stoic Power channel for more wisdom on living a life of action.